how do you, I'm trying to find the way to say this. How do you communicate what your idea is to somebody when you're afraid that they're going to steal your idea? And in a way that's effective, but because you want to have a detailed plan to show them that you're serious, but at the same time.
I have my personal view on this, and I'm going to share it with you. Frankly, I think that, I see it very rarely that people steal each other's ideas. And frankly, if they want to steal your idea, they might as well, it's probably a lot easier to just work with you. Because you're already committed, you're already there, you're already ready to go, right? And if you're going to steal somebody else's idea, you might as well just work with them together and get there faster. That's my personal opinion. Money, what do you think?
I completely agree. In all the years I've been involved in startups, I think only once I've ever heard of someone stealing an idea, and nothing ever came of it. People who are of the caliber of creating companies from scratch, that have that mentality and that drive, they either choose to work with someone or they choose to work on their own vision. So if you come up with a great idea, it's highly unlikely that they're going to steal it. In fact, the risk is well worth having the opportunity to vet your idea and share it and brainstorm it and really work it, as opposed to just keeping it, locked up out of the fear that someone's going to take it away from you.
To be very frank, Money and I see lots of applications for found dating, and we see a bunch of ideas people have. People think that, you look at the ideas that people have, and a lot of them are repetitions of the same ideas. Everyone thinks that that's a great idea, and it's like, there are great ideas out there, it's just about who are the right people to implement them.
I have a question. Also, you're talking about hackathons. So if you go and you hack for a weekend, you come up with a product, and obviously there was at least one person from the team that had the idea going into it in the first place, and others joined the team to be as devs or designers or whatnot. At the end of the weekend, if those devs or designers didn't want to move on with the project, but the idea generator did, do you have any experience of, do they have any stake in it? If what they actually built over that weekend is actually their launching platform or a good chunk of their...
We've encountered that. I can't name who, but we have encountered it.
Yeah.
And it's usually not a problem, right? Because when people ended up working together, if anyone was serious about it, they usually end up talking about having been serious about it. So if one person is committed to it and says, okay, I really want to run with this, the whole idea around startups is they're not easy, right? You're going to be going through so much from inception to execution that really it's like if you manage to make something of it and start with that idea, then kudos to you for having done it, and it was available to everyone else to do the same.
But that's what I'm looking at, because a lot of people just join hackathons because they want to work on a cool project for a
Sure.
weekend. So, but at the end, if they're done with that project, okay, I'm going to work on my own stuff. I don't want to move forward with what I worked on. But could they come back in 6 months and say, hey, well, that's my IP that you're running with?
It's very difficult, from a legal standpoint. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak definitively about it. But from my understanding, it's very difficult to even go down those paths.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of anyone actually doing so.
Yeah.
Although I do know a couple of people who have started startups from ideas that began in a hackathon.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, though, just to clarify, that we recommend hackathons is actually not at all to do with the idea you work on. It's the fact that you worked on something. The idea could be throwaway. You don't have to actually be serious about it. You don't even have to like it that much. The fact that you worked on something with deadlines, under pressure, with someone else, that's the real value. Anyone else?
Okay.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah. Would you recommend formalizing your relationship in a legal entity, or just working casually?
If there were lawyers in the room, and I bet there are, they're all going to tell you to formalize it. I'm not going to tell you to formalize. I'm going to tell you to go and try and working with that other person and then figuring out whether it's worthwhile to formalize or not. Incorporating actually costs money. Go and try and building. We do recommend you to have the initial conversations and at least sign some of the initial agreements so that the code you produce or whatever you produce is owned by this new entity. So as you were saying, that it does not come back to bite you But on the other hand, do we tell you to go incorporate and go through like all the hassle of doing that? Gotta concentrate on building and then figure out if it's worth incorporating. That's our personal experience.
There are simpler constructs than incorporation. The pre-incorporation agreement is one that you can strike between each other, much simpler, far less costly. And even that, you really don't want to get to that until you've actually had a chance to work a bit with the person. Attempting to protect intellectual property when things are so nascent is usually a waste of your time, right? Worry about protecting intellectual property when there's legitimate, real intellectual property that any intelligent coders couldn't have duplicated in a weekend hackathon themselves, right? Worry about real technology. And if you're at that point with your co-founder and you guys are really making something of it, then yes, absolutely look to formalize. And at that point, the advice would be variable based on what situation you're in.
And if, like, with seeking venture capital or whatever, do they typically require legal entities, or?
If you're at a point where you're seeking venture capital, it depends what kind of capital you're seeking. Chances are you're going to be talking to some angels in the city, or if you're talking to venture capitals, I'm sure, like, formalizing your relationship with the person you're working with is probably going to be one of the least important things. Frankly, if you're already incorporated, they're probably going to go through your incorporation agreements and going to have you change your agreements based on what they like.
Yeah, it's you're never going to do fundraising without having your corporation formed, without having a whole bunch of legal documents structured around it. Like, no one's going to fund you on a personal level. So absolutely, all that stuff will be automatically triggered if you haven't incorporated up until that point. And we can get into that afterwards if you want any more information.
Question?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned two partners are better than three. What was the basis for that?
So the statistics that were published in that same infographic that I was talking about, as well as other places, I don't have the sources on hand other than this one I'm stating, but we have come across this number numerous times where 3 co-founders is actually less likely to succeed than a single founder. And the reason is that it begins to split the team in decision making. So you end up getting, when I was talking about co-founders having a lot of internal conflict with each other, and that breaks up 62% of companies. Well, as it turns out, that's more likely to happen if you have 3 people than 2. So the stats, the way I remember them, 2 is about 40% more likely to succeed than 1. 1 is about 50% more likely to succeed than 3, right? So it's an interesting area, but definitely far and away 2 is the optimal number.
But every rule has its own.
Absolutely.
Right, so.
There are companies that have succeeded with 4 co-founders. Nothing to stop you from doing it. Stats are stats, right?
So
it's a distribution.
Number works better than a
Sure. Well, thank you, Eli and Manny. They'll be here all day.